Welcome to our deep dive today into Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Oh, excellent
Yeah,
choice.
we're going to get into some pretty profound ideas about
Yeah,
living in the present moment
that's right.
and how that relates to suffering and all this stuff.
It can get a little heady.
Yeah, it can get complex, so we're
Yeah.
here to kind of guide you through some of the core concepts and hopefully spark some aha moments along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a book that can really shift your perspective in a very practical way.
Oh yeah, and that's what's cool about it. It's not just like a vague philosophical thing. It's like,
Oh,
okay, there are actual tools here for experiencing life with more awareness and peace.
totally.
So let's dive right in. The book starts with this idea that a lot of our suffering comes from being trapped in our minds.
Right.
Tolle calls this psychological time. And it basically means that we're either, dwelling on the past or worrying about the future and rarely fully present in the pace.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that way? Like your mind is just this constant stream of thoughts pulling you in a million directions?
Oh, absolutely. And Tolle, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He even compares the mind to a disease
He
when
does.
it becomes compulsive and runs on autopilot.
Yeah, he actually says thinking has become a disease, which sounds pretty intense.
It's a provocative statement,
It is.
but it gets you thinking right.
It does.
He's not saying all thinking is bad.
Right.
It's more about recognizing when our thoughts become this endless loop of negativity and worry that drains our energy and keeps us from experiencing life fully.
It's like our minds are working against us,
Right.
creating all this unnecessary stress.
Exactly, and that's where the ego comes in.
Okay, so how does that relate to the ego?
Well, Tolle sees the ego as this false sense of self that we create based on our thoughts and memories and anxieties about the future.
So it's not like a separate entity, it's more like this.
Right, it's more like a pattern of thinking.
Yeah.
A way of identifying with our thoughts and emotions instead of seeing them as simply passing phenomena.
Gotcha. So why is the ego such a problem then?
Well, because it thrives on negativity and drama.
Okay.
Think about it. How often do you get caught up in needing to be right or comparing yourself to others?
Oh, yeah.
Or feeling resentful about something that happened in the past?
I think we've all been there.
Right, exactly.
For sure.
Those are all examples of the ego at work.
Okay.
It's constantly seeking validation, feeding off conflict,
Oh, wow.
and trying to solidify its sense of self.
It's almost like the ego needs that drama to survive.
Exactly. And Tolle even connects this to a deeper fear,
Mhm.
the ego's ultimate fear of its own annihilation.
Interesting.
It's constantly trying to assert its existence to prove its importance,
Right.
because deep down it knows it's an illusion.
Wow. Okay, so if we're kind of buying into this idea that the ego is running the show
Yeah.
and creating all this suffering, what's the way out? How do we escape this trap?
Well, that's where the power of now comes in.
Okay.
His solution is presence.
Okay.
But it's not just a mental concept, though.
Right.
He describes it as a lived experience of being fully in this moment, free from the mind's constant chatter.
So it's about like quieting the mind, being more mindful, would you say?
It's more than just mindfulness.
Okay.
It's about accessing a deeper level of awareness, a state of being where you're not lost in thought, but fully present to the reality of what is right now.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but like how do you actually achieve that kind of presence?
Right.
Isn't it pretty hard to just like shut off your thoughts?
Well, he uses this great anecdote to illustrate this point.
Okay.
He talks about Zen masters who would suddenly strike their students with a stick to test their level of presence.
Why would they do that?
They wanted to see if their students were so absorbed in thought that they wouldn't even notice the stick coming.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty jarring wake-up call
Yeah, I could
to
imagine.
the importance of being present.
Okay, so maybe I don't need a Zen master whacking me with a stick,
Right,
but I get the point.
right.
So how do we cultivate this presence without resorting to extreme measures?
Well, Tolle offers some practical techniques that we can explore. And it starts with recognizing that presence isn't something you achieve. It's a state of being you access by simply paying attention to the pace.
Okay, that sounds simple enough, but how do we actually do that?
He suggests paying attention to your breath,
Okay.
focusing on sensory experiences like the colors and textures around you,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing awareness to everyday activities.
So even something as mundane as washing dishes
Exactly.
can be a pathway to presence.
Exactly. It's about shifting from seeing these tasks as means to an end and experiencing them as ends in themselves.
That's interesting. So it's not about changing what we do,
Right.
but how we do it.
Precisely. And this shift in awareness can also transform our relationships.
Interesting.
Tolle sees relationships as either breeding grounds for egoic drama
Hmm.
or as powerful catalysts for spiritual growth.
Okay.
It all depends on how we approach them.
So how does he suggest we approach relationships differently?
He emphasizes the importance of becoming aware of our own egoic tendencies in relationships.
So that's recognizing when we're seeking validation
Yes.
or trying to control the other person.
Yes, and also noticing when we're projecting our unresolved pain onto our partner.
And being honest, that takes a lot of self-awareness.
Absolutely.
Being willing to look at our own baggage and how it's playing out in the relationship.
Absolutely. It's not about blaming our partner for our unhappiness, but taking responsibility for our own inner state.
Right.
And that's where presence comes in again.
Okay.
Tolle suggests that when we're fully present with our partner, we can see them more clearly without the filter of our past experiences or expectations.
It's like we're meeting them for the first time in this moment.
And that's where true intimacy can blossom.
That's beautiful.
Tolle describes how presence creates a space for love to flow freely without the need for control or manipulation.
That sounds beautiful, but also really challenging, especially when we're dealing with all this baggage from the past,
Yes.
what Tully calls the pain body.
Uh,
The pain body. So maybe this is a good place to pause
yeah.
for part one.
We'll unpack that in part 2.
We'll unpack that in part two, for sure. It's a key concept we have to explore. So join us next time as we delve deeper into the pain body and how it impacts our relationships.
Sounds good. Welcome back to your deep dive into the power of now.
Yeah, so last time we were talking about the ego and how it can create so much drama in our relationships.
Right.
And then right at the end, you mentioned this concept of the pain body,
Yes.
which sounds a bit ominous. What exactly is that?
Well, think of it as this reservoir of old emotional pain
Okay.
that we all carry around. It's the accumulation of past hurts, traumas, negative experiences that we haven't fully processed or released.
So it's like emotional baggage that we're lugging around even if we're not consciously aware of it.
Exactly. And this pain body can have a huge impact on our relationships.
Yeah, how so?
It can drive us to recreate old patterns of pain and suffering, even when we consciously want something different.
I can see how that would happen. Like, have you ever noticed how sometimes you get triggered by something your partner does?
Mm.
And you have this intense reaction that seems totally out of proportion to the situation.
That's the pain body at work.
Really?
It's like this unconscious force that gets activated, hijacking our emotions and behavior.
Wow. So it's not really about what's happening in the present moment.
Right.
It's about this old pain resurfacing.
Exactly. And Tolle suggests that the pain body actually thrives on drama.
Oh,
It
wow.
wants to keep us stuck in those negative cycles, even if it means sabotaging our relationships.
So if it's unconscious, how do we even know if it's happening?
That's the first step, becoming aware of the pain body's presence.
Okay.
Tolle offers some insightful ways to recognize it.
Okay.
For instance, notice when you feel a surge of negative emotions like anger, resentment, or jealousy, that seems disproportionate to the situation.
Okay, so it's about paying attention to those moments when we get, like, hooked by our emotions.
Exactly. Another clue is when you find yourself replaying old hurts or grievances in your mind,
Oh, yeah.
even if they happened years ago. The pain body loves to dwell in the past, keeping those wounds fresh.
I've definitely spent way too much time ruminating about things that I can't change.
We all do it. It's a human tendency.
Yeah.
But Tolle offers a way out of this cycle of suffering.
Okay.
He says the key to freedom is awareness.
So it's not about trying to suppress or ignore the pain body?
No, it's about shining the light of awareness on it.
Okay.
Tolle even suggests that we can use the pain body's intensity as a catalyst for awakening.
That sounds a bit counterintuitive. Are you saying we can actually use our pain to become more conscious?
Exactly. It's about transforming our suffering into a pathway to liberation.
Wow.
Instead of identifying with the pain body, we can observe it with detachment, recognizing that it's not who we are.
So it's like separating ourselves from the pain,
Yes.
becoming the observer rather than the victim.
Precisely. And when we make that shift, we can start to disentangle ourselves from those old patterns of pain and reactivity.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Tolle suggests that relationships can actually be a powerful vehicle for this transformation.
Interesting. So instead of seeing relationships as the source of drama,
Right.
they can become a training ground for presence.
Exactly. Imagine your partner says something that normally triggers you.
Yeah.
Instead of reacting automatically from your pain body, you pause, you feel the pain, and you choose a different response.
That sounds incredibly challenging, but also incredibly liberating.
It requires courage and commitment to face our own shadows, but the rewards are immense. Tolle writes about this idea of using challenging situations as opportunities to strengthen the light of presence within us.
Okay.
It's like each time we choose awareness over reactivity, we're building our inner strength and resilience.
So it's not about becoming emotionless or detached from our feelings.
No, it's about experiencing our emotions fully without letting them control us.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we are not our thoughts or our emotions.
Okay.
We are the awareness that experiences them.
And that awareness is what allows us to choose a different response rather than just reacting unconsciously from our pain body.
That's the power of presence. And this brings us to another key aspect of the power of now:
Okay, what's that?
surrender.
Surrender. Okay.
Tolle suggests that we must surrender to what is in the present moment without resistance.
But doesn't that sound passive, like we're just giving up and letting life happen to us?
Not at all. Tolle clarifies that surrender isn't about resigning ourselves to difficult situations or becoming doormats.
Okay.
It's about accepting what is without fighting against reality.
Mm-hmm.
He uses a great analogy of being stuck in the mud.
Okay.
If you keep struggling and resisting, you'll only sink deeper. But if you surrender to the reality of the situation, you can start to find a way out.
That's a helpful image.
Uh,
So surrender is about letting go of the struggle, recognizing that fighting reality only creates more suffering.
Exactly. And Tolle emphasizes that acceptance isn't about liking the situation.
Right.
It's about seeing it clearly without resistance so that we can take effective action.
That makes sense. It's like when we're caught up in resistance and negativity,
Right.
our vision is clouded, and we can't see the possibilities for change.
Exactly. And Tolle argues that actions taken from a place of presence have a different quality, a different energy. They're more effective because they're not driven by fear or ego.
So how does this relate to that Zen story we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
The one with the butcher.
Right, right. That story beautifully illustrates this idea of finding the best cut of meat in every moment.
Right.
It's about recognizing that true fulfillment isn't about seeking out specific experiences, but about bringing our full presence to whatever experience we're having.
So even if we're stuck in traffic or doing the dishes, we can choose to find something interesting, something valuable in that moment.
That's the key. It's about shifting our focus from achieving goals to simply being present in the process. It's about seeing the inherent value in every experience, even the seemingly mundane ones.
Sounds like a radical shift in perspective.
It is, and it requires practice. Tolle offers several practical ways to cultivate presence in our daily lives.
Like,
For example, he suggests paying attention to our breath,
okay.
bringing awareness to our senses,
Mm.
and engaging in mindful activities like walking or gardening.
Those sound like great starting points, but I imagine it takes time and effort to shift from our habitual patterns of thinking and reacting.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Tolle describes it as a journey of awakening that unfolds gradually. But even small moments of presence can have a profound impact on our well-being.
So it's not about becoming some enlightened master overnight. It's about taking small steps, practicing presence in our everyday lives.
And those small steps can lead to big changes. Toyle suggests that as we become more present, we start to tap into a deeper dimension within ourselves,
Okay.
what he calls the inner body.
Okay, now you've really piqued my curiosity. What is this inner body and how do we connect with it?
Let's explore that in part 3 of our deep dive. We'll delve into Tolle's fascinating insights on the inner body and how it can help us access a deeper level of peace and presence.
All right, so we're back and ready to dive into this inner body idea.
Yes.
I'm really curious about it.
It's a fascinating concept that Tolle explores.
Yeah?
He describes the inner body as this subtle energy field that permeates our physical form.
Okay, so it's not something you can see or touch.
Right, not in the conventional sense.
Yeah.
But it's something you can feel and experience through focused awareness.
So it's like an energetic dimension of our being that exists beyond the physical body.
Exactly. And Tolle suggests that connecting with this inner body is key to accessing a deeper level of peace and presence.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Yeah.
But how do we even begin to connect with something that's beyond our physical senses?
It starts with shifting our attention inward.
Okay.
Tolle suggests a simple practice.
Hmm?
Simply bring your awareness to the feeling of your body from within.
Okay.
Notice the subtle sensations, the energy that flows through you.
So instead of focusing on like external things,
Right.
we turn our attention to the sensations within our own bodies.
Exactly. And it's not about trying to analyze or judge those sensations.
Okay.
It's about simply observing them with a gentle, curious awareness.
Would you say this is similar to mindfulness practices where you focus on your breath or bodily sensations?
There are definitely similarities.
Yeah.
But Tolle emphasizes that connecting with the inner body is about more than just relaxation or stress reduction. It's about accessing a deeper dimension of our being, a place of stillness and peace that's always present within us, regardless of what's happening in the external world.
So it's like finding an inner sanctuary, a place of refuge amidst the chaos of daily life.
Exactly. And as we become more familiar with this inner space, we start to identify less with our thoughts and
Good.
emotions and more with the awareness that's observing them.
It's like creating a separation between who we are
Yes,
and the constant chatter of our minds.
exactly.
And he's saying that that can have a really profound impact on our experience.
He does. He even talks about how connecting with the inner body can reduce our fear of death.
Okay, that's a big claim. How does that work?
Well, if we're less identified with our physical forms, then the idea of death becomes less threatening.
Right.
Toll argues that much of our fear and anxiety stems from this clinging to the illusion of separateness,
Mm-hmm.
this belief that we are our bodies and that when our bodies die, we cease to exist.
But he's suggesting that we're more than our physical bodies.
Yes, by connecting with the timeless dimension within us, the inner body, we begin to glimpse a reality that transcends physical death.
Okay, so it's about recognizing that there's a part of us that's eternal, that exists beyond the physical realm.
Exactly, and this realization can bring a profound sense of peace and liberation.
Wow.
Tolle writes about how those who have experienced a deep connection with their inner body often report a diminished fear of death.
Interesting.
It's as if they've touched something eternal and indestructible within themselves.
And powerful. So how do we cultivate this connection with the inner body? Are there specific practices we can try?
Tolle suggests integrating this inner body awareness into our daily lives. For example, when you're waiting in line or commuting to work, instead of getting lost in your thoughts, try bringing your attention to the sensations of your body from within.
So it's about using those everyday moments as opportunities to practice presence, to connect with that inner stillness.
Exactly. And as you practice, you'll find that it becomes easier to access this state of being. It's like building a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes.
And as we strengthen this presence muscle, we start to experience the world differently, right?
Mhm.
We're less reactive, more grounded, and more connected to ourselves and others.
That's the beauty of the power of now. It offers a practical path to experiencing a deeper level of peace, joy, and fulfillment, not by changing our external circumstances, but by transforming our inner state of being.
It's not about waiting for things to be perfect in our lives, but about finding that inner peace and joy in the midst of it all.
That's the key takeaway.
Wow.
Tully emphasizes that the present moment is all we ever have.
Right.
It's the only place where life truly unfolds.
That's deep.
And when we fully embrace the life, now we tap into a source of power and wisdom that's always available to us.
That's beautiful. I love that. And, I think this has been such a great deep dive. Tolle's work is so rich and layered.
It is.
What would you say is the most important thing for our listener to remember?
I think it comes down to this. The power is in this moment.
Hmm.
It's not about achieving some future state of enlightenment or perfection.
Right.
It's about waking up to the reality of who you are right now in this very moment.
Yeah.
And that's a journey that begins with simply paying attention.
Beautiful. Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the power of now, I want to encourage you, our listener, to take a moment to reflect on what resonated most with you. What insights are you taking away from this exploration, and how can you apply these ideas to your own life, starting right now? Remember, the power is in this moment. Don't wait for the perfect time or the perfect circumstances. Start now.
Absolutely. And remember, this is just the beginning of your exploration. The journey of awakening is ongoing, ever unfolding. Stay curious, stay open, and keep diving deeper into the mystery of being.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the power of now. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the power of the present moment.